So it's my job to persuade you in 15 minutes that you should read at least some of my book, even though it's only partly about IT, and most of what it has to say about IT is highly critical, or perhaps especially because it is. I'm here as a representative of a very important group of human beings, dinosaurs. I am someone who still writes my own columns. I am someone who writes books and hopes people will read them as books and not on Kindles or similar devices. And I am someone who believes that states matter and democracy matters, and far too many people, in my view, involved in information technology and the digital revolution don't. So what I want to do in the next 10, 12 minutes is give you the highlights of my book in 10 points. First, we are, like it or not, in a crisis of democratic capitalism, which is our operating system, the system described by Scott Galloway as the West. And the reason we're in crisis is very simple. We've created far too many angry, disappointed, furious, disillusioned people, and they vote for crazies. The second point I want to make is you shouldn't be complacent about this. 100 years ago this year, in this city, there was a putsch by a man some of you might have heard of, Adolf Hitler. The putsch was defeated. Everybody thought the Nazi threat was completely over. He was put in prison, and it all went away until the Great Depression. And in 3 years, they had become the biggest party in the country, and we know where that ended. If you have enough frightened and angry people, and economics is essential to this, you have serious trouble. The third point I want to make is that our operating system, which we all take for granted, the marriage of liberal democracy, by which I mean democracy under the rule of law and with constraining institutions of a whole variety, freedom of opinion, human rights and so forth, and liberal market capitalism is a very complicated marriage, which I call a marriage of complementary opposites. They're complementary because you're not going to have a proper market capitalism in a plutocratic or autocratic society. Ask Jack Ma. Ask Jack Ma, or the Russian oligarchs for that matter. And similarly, you're not going to have democracy if you don't have an independent, vibrant market economy which stabilizes human livelihoods and in significant measure depoliticizes them. Not completely, but in significant measure depoliticizes them. But they are opposites, because the basic driver of capitalism is, of course, individual enterprise, large entities which are self-interested, rightly and properly so, and for them the state is mostly a nuisance, except when it can be exploited for their own gain. And of course, market capitalism creates massive inequality of resources available to be used in politics. And democracy is necessary for capitalism, just as capitalism, as I've indicated, is necessary for democracy. The fundamental reason people engaged in the economy, who are revolutionizing the economy, needs democracy is that it's the only way we know to create a tolerable state. And anybody who knows anything about history and humanity knows the state is a fundamental, permanent institution of complex societies. We cannot do without it, but we can tame it. The fourth point I want to make is that liberal democracy, as I've defined it, is universally recognized by serious scholars to be in quote-unquote recession. It is declining not just in emerging and developing countries, but it's been subject to very considerable stress in core Western countries, notably the US and UK, but not only then. It is striking that Freedom House, a very distinguished American organization, rates the quality of American democracy today as far lower than any other significant Western society, and yet the US is, of course, far and away the most important of them all. The fifth point is that the erosion of democracy we are seeing is the result of long-term economic failures, high and rising inequality, declining social mobility, slowing growth. We talk about all this wonderful technological revolution. All the evidence, and it is not an illusion, is that productivity growth has slowed, not risen, since the middle of the 20th century. And the result is of this is, as I've already said, to make people pretty cynical. And then along came this massive financial crisis. And there is nothing, as the Great Depression showed, nothing like a huge financial crisis for demonstrating to the most ignorant the failure of elites they trusted and the even more unbearable sight of seeing them all rescued. It is not surprising that orthodox traditional conservatism was demolished in both Britain and America after that. Sixth, this disillusionment and loss of trust in the elites of our society, commercial, financial, intellectual, economic, and political, led inevitably not to an absence of trust in anything, but on the contrary, in the trust in, as it were, anybody who wasn't one of them. We've seen this throughout human history. Plato wrote about this in the Republic. What has happened is that this destabilization, above all of the center-right, but also the center-left, injected anti-pluralist populism, the sort of populist who says, I am the people, you are the people because you support me, nobody else matters. This is, of course, the path to dictatorship, as surely you all represent. Remember and understand, they want, that was a Freudian slip if ever there was one. They think they are entitled to do whatever they want because they represent the only people who matter, who are the people who trust them. And what they give in turn is respect. And people who feel disrespected will go for these people. Seventh, I'm afraid our new economy, the digital economy, has played a substantial role in all this, particularly in combination with some of the worst aspects of our financial sector in creating a rentier form of capitalism. But above all, it has destabilized how information, the lifeblood of democracy, the core of democracy, it has destabilized how it has been created and disseminated. We have to work out a way of getting back to honest and truthful debate in our societies. Eighth, if we are to get through this in one piece, sustaining liberal democracy and our competitive market economies, we have to cool the rage. We have to lower the temperature of our politics. It's fantastically dangerous. Democracy can be defined as a civilized civil war. It rests on the idea that people can compete for power, but will give it up voluntarily and willingly to those who defeat them. The fact that Donald Trump and Bolsonaro were not there at the handover to their successors was an absolutely central bit of symbolic refutation of core democratic values. If we want to renew our society, we have to get back to a politics which at its core, and it will be very difficult now, is about ensuring that all our people, not just you geniuses, not just the people you serve, all our people feel valued and respected by our society. And that is the core project of political reform for the future. Ninth, if we manage to do this, and it will not be easy because we're a long way away, though I think in this country it's probably somewhat better than elsewhere, though this recent little coup attempt made me wonder, we also need, as Scott Galloway said, a renewed role of democracies in the world. We need to oppose the threats from powerful autocracies because they are very powerful. But we also, and this is going to be very difficult, need to cooperate with them on the essential shared tasks, the shared tasks of trying to sustain peace, prosperity, and our planet, the future of our planet. Surely we can all see that major wars with nuclear powers are spectacularly dangerous. Finally, since I have the opportunity to talk to you all, you, in what you do, will play a central role in what you do with your private lives and in your work. A public-spirited and morally engaged elite is essential if republics, that is to say, liberal democracies, are to endure. The Greeks and Romans understood this, and they understood how easily that can be destroyed. You have to do this. The alternative in the end, and the end may not be that long from now, could be a return to some form of predatory oligarchy or tyranny. And you and your children will not like that. Thank you.